Guys, round 2 of the 20v1 rap civil war is in full effect. As the social media soldier, the certified PDF file, the king OV-ho himself, Aubrey Good Civilian Graham, has declared war on the entire music industry once again and sending his shots in the best way he knows possible. Sneak dissing on Instagram. See, if you guys have been keeping up with the beef between Drake, Kendrick, A$AP Rocky, The Weeknd, Rick Ross, Metro Boomin, Future, and more, then you know that Drake has spent as much time creating carefully crafted killer captions on Instagram as he has in the studio trying to conjure up a decent diss track. He went from calling Meek Mill Twitter fingers back in 2015 to living long enough to seeing himself become the villain and fully embody what it means to have Twitter fingers in 2024. Except it's no longer Twitter, it's now X, and Drake is not doing his dirty work on X, he's doing it on Instagram. Drake is drawing a clear line in the sand between him and all his ops as he's unfollowing every rapper that's handed him an L this year and every major figure in the industry that has switched up on him. Now, it's unfortunate that rap beefs have evolved from diss records to decreasing follower counts, but this is where we're at right now. So we're going to go through this laundry list of people that Drake has unfollowed off Instagram and understand why he has issues with each and every single person here. But first we got to touch on a couple rappers that Drake chose not to unfollow off Instagram. And that would be Kanye West and J. Cole. In this hunt of Drake's Instagram, I also realized he follows this girl I went to high school with. Don't worry, she's not an A minor. She's most definitely of legal age, but funny enough, she actually got a BBL recently, so, they don't call him BBL Drizzy for no reason. But yeah, let's move on to J. Cole and Kanye West. Drake also follows this meme account called Kanye Doing Things, so it's obvious he's still keeping an eye out on Kanye, which is funny because when this whole Kendrick beef was going on, Kanye actually did a remix to Metro Boomin's song Like That, which was a complete diss towards Drake and J. Cole, and he said he was extremely excited for the elimination of Drake. He also started his verse off by saying, "Yo, Dot, I got you," implying that his involvement in this beef was helping Kendrick Lamar in any way. But I guess Drake took this as much of a joke as the rest of the world did, because it didn't seem to bother him enough to put Kanye on the block list like he did to a bunch of other rappers that we're going to talk about shortly. And he also decided not to unfollow J. Cole. Now, why this is interesting is because, to give you guys a little backstory, when Kendrick Lamar first kicked off this beef, it was in response to Drake and J. Cole's record First Person Shooter. Now, Drake and J. Cole were on tour together. They were buddy-buddy. They were hugging and kissing on stage, as Kendrick put it. They seemed to be in a great space where they could both give each other their flowers and appreciate the hard work that both of them have put in over the last 10 years. But things turned a little sour when J. Cole decided to apologize for even thinking of dissing Kendrick Lamar, calling him one of the greatest rappers while he was on stage at his Dreamville festival. Drake didn't take too kindly to this because in the following weeks, he would go on to release his diss records Push-Ups and Family Matters, where he would touch on J. Cole apologizing by saying, "Cole is losing sleep over this beef. That couldn't be me." And also saying, "I don't care what Cole thinks, Kendrick's diss was weak." Now, maybe this didn't mean anything. It was just Drake showing that he wasn't going to back down like J. Cole did. But in the coming weeks, J. Cole would mysteriously come out of hibernation and only collaborate with people who had a very open problem with Drake. He did a feature for Future and Metro Boomin. He did a feature for A$AP Rocky. He recently did a feature for the rapper Daylight, who is signed to Kendrick Lamar's old label, TDE. And people thought he had some bars for Drake on these records. Now, we're not going to speculate here, but what's definitely very obvious is that A$AP Rocky was dissing Drake on the record that J. Cole was featured on. So it's just interesting that he chose to collaborate with these guys right after backing out of the beef with Kendrick and leaving Drake stranded to fight on his own. And again, we're not going to speculate. However, the king glazer of the OV-ho totem pole, Mal, went on his podcast, The Rory and Mal Show, where he spoke on Drake very obviously not liking J. Cole after this beef. Drake went on to like a clip of that video, seemingly confirming that Mal was correct in his statements that Drake does not like J. Cole at this period of time. So it's interesting that Drake would keep J. Cole on his list of followers on Instagram. He also kept Nicki Minaj on that list and did not unfollow her even after she called him ugly boy after he collaborated with her op, Lotto. Lots of beefing going on, but let's touch on the rappers that Drake did unfollow. The first one on this list is going to be none other than Joe Budden. Now, I have a whole video coming out breaking down their entire beef because it's a long-winded thing that dates back all the way to like 2012. Joe Budden has said on record that he feels like he's responsible for passing the baton to guys like Pusha T and then Kendrick to be able to come at Drake with the ammo that they had because he was the one that was delivering all of these disses to Drake before any of them ever did. So we're going to break down all of his disses in a separate video. And I also have a full video breaking down Kanye's situation with Drake because that's obviously a long-winded one that also dates back like 10 to 15 years ago. I'll leave that in the description of this video. And if you're mad at me for making so many videos about Drake beefs, you should really be mad at Drake for beefing with so many different rappers. And whether you love me or hate me for commenting on it, drop a little comment and like and subscription if you enjoy this video. But yeah, Joe Budden is an obvious target of this unfollowing spree that the sensitive rapper has recently went on. Joe has been very critical of Drake's recent work, even dating all the way back to his 2016 release Views. That was the first album, in my opinion, where Drake started taking a slight decline, and Joe Budden felt the same way, saying that his records on that album were weak and felt soulless compared to his previous work. Joe Budden also had a lot of criticisms of Drake's most recent album, For All the Dogs, saying that Drake has to stop hanging out with such young girls because all he could talk about on records is his superficial relationships with them. Now, Drake didn't like these criticisms too much, as it prompted him to go on a massive Instagram rant against Joe Budden, where he said that Joe was a failed rapper and that the only reason he's got food on the table and money in his pocket is because he clocks into his 9 to 5 at the podcast studio to talk about Drake every single day. Kinda sounds like me.
There's a lot of little nuggets in both of their disses that if it wasn't for these breakdowns, and salute to, guys like this, Rapaholics, because I think they directly get it.
No, but in all seriousness, I think I share a lot of the same criticisms about Drake as Joe does, as I was a massive fan of all of his work leading up to If You're Reading This Is Too Late. But it seemed like after that, Drake kind of found a formula for how to make cheap, quick, easy hits and just kept repeating it with each album, and every project sounded weaker than the previous one. And as he got more hits, he got richer, and as he got richer, his lifestyle became more materialistic and superficial, which led the subject matter within his music substanceless and repetitive. And Drake would go on to reference Joe Budden's comments about Drake liking young women on his Kendrick diss record Tailor Made Freestyle, where he used Tupac AI vocals to rap as Tupac talking to Kendrick, where he was basically telling Kendrick to diss Drake for liking young women, which was a rumor started on the Joe Budden podcast. In reality, let's be real, that rumor really started when Drake was kissing certain women on stage, but that's a topic for another video. And little did Drake know that telling Kendrick to talk about him liking young women would fuel Kendrick to drop his anthem Not Like Us, where he called Drake a certified PDF file. Now, speaking of Kendrick, he was rightfully another rapper that got put on the block list off Drake's Instagram. So if you thought that there was any chance the two would patch things up, think again. Because in Drake's most ruthless attack towards Kendrick, eliminated him off his list of followers off Instagram. This whole beef kicked off when Drake rapped on First Person Shooter that he's as big as the Super Bowl. Kendrick laughed that off and then announced that he would be performing at the Super Bowl, and it was alleged that Drake then sent Kendrick's team a cease and desist letter to stop him from performing the PDF file anthem Not Like Us at the Super Bowl. Drake would then tell his mouthpiece DJ Academics that he did not in fact send any sort of cease and desist letter to Kendrick or his team, but he also told DJ Academics that he wanted a round 2 with Kendrick. Then he quickly backed out of that, so his word may not be the most reliable. Now, the next victims on Drake's block list were LeBron James and DeMar DeRozan, two NBA basketball players that Drake formerly, seemingly had friendships with. Drake gave LeBron his hit song Forever with Lil Wayne, Kanye West, and Eminem for the soundtrack to LeBron's movie. Now, if you guys made it this far in the video, I want to know in the comments, if that record came out today, with new verses from Drake, Eminem, Kanye West, and Lil Wayne, who would have the best performance on that record in 2024? But yeah, they were seemingly all friends until Kendrick Lamar did his pop-out concert, where he performed his diss track Not Like Us a total of 6 times. DeMar DeRozan was on stage dancing as Kendrick performed that record, and he was in the music video for the record, and LeBron James was in the crowd doing his best to not be seen as he vibed out to Kendrick's performance. Now, Drake told you there's no friends in the industry, but I guess he also meant there's no friends in the NBA industry, as he put these guys on the block list. Kendrick also told LeBron to keep his family away from Drake on his record Meet the Grams, so maybe LeBron is listening to him here. And someone who is definitely keeping his family far away from Drake and keeping his buffaloes and cows away from Drake would be none other than Rick Ross. I think Rick Ross is the only rapper who not only owns a buffalo wing franchise, but also owns actual buffaloes that live with him at his house. Rick Ross was a big player within this beef. He was the first rapper to actually drop a full-on diss record against Drake, because after Drake dropped Push-Ups, where he rapped about Rick Ross being a cop and saying that Rick Ross should worry less about Drake and more about whatever he had going on with Diddy, Rick Ross came out to drop his track Champagne Moments, where he accused Drake of having liposuction, of having a nose job. He even accused Drake of having a ghostwriter for his verse on Sicko Mode. He called Drake a white boy, and of all the people that Drake is beefing with, I think his friendship with Rick Ross is the one I'm saddest to see break, because they put out some classics together. Drake actually even said, just a couple months before this beef even started, that Rick Ross was his favorite person to rap with. But that wouldn't be for long. The two would continue taking shots at each other. Rick Ross made fun of Drake for having a plane that was so old that it could have crashed. Then Rick Ross's plane actually did crash, and Drake made fun of that. Then Rick Ross did a show in Vancouver, Canada, and he played Not Like Us. And one of the people in attendance did not like that very much. They decided to stand up for Drake, which caused Rick Ross's crew to get in an altercation with this individual. Then Rick Ross called out 50 Cent for clicking up with Drake, even though he's Dr. Dre's protege, who was Kendrick Lamar's mentor. And Drake seemed to have had enough. He put him on the block list. Now, as for Metro Boomin and Future, the two that actually started this whole beef by having Kendrick Lamar featured on their album where he said, F the big three, it's just big me, Drake still follows Future, but does not follow Metro Boomin. I'm not sure if he ever did. But it does seem like there is a chance we may see a reconciliation between Future and Drake, as Drake even rapped on his Family Matters diss record, saying that the fallout between him and Future made Drake sick to his stomach, and the beef was all stemming from Metro Boomin. But another ATL native that Drake definitely put on the block list was none other than Playboi Carti. Carti's one of the only rappers that Kendrick forgot to mention on his Not Like Us record, where he accused Drake of running to Atlanta when he needs a few dollars. Cause in my opinion, Drake has been biting Playboi Carti's sound for the last 3 years. Whether it was him doing his best Playboi Carti impression on their collaborative track, Pain 1993 back in 2020, or his 2022 record, Back Outside Boys. And yeah, I know Lil Yachty wrote that record, but it sounded like a carbon copy of Playboi Carti. And he continued biting Carti's rage sound on his 2023 album For All the Dogs, on records like Daylight or IDGAF. And he even kicked off round 2 of this beef, throwing subliminals at Kendrick on a record called No Face, which featured Playboi Carti. But once the song hit streaming platforms, Carti's verse was noticeably missing. And yeah, I know it wasn't really a verse, it was just him saying no face over and over again. But people thought it was weird Playboi Carti was missing from the final version of this record. That was until someone from Kendrick's camp said that him and Carti were on good terms. Then Carti clicked up with The Weeknd, another artist who was beefing with Drake, and they collaborated on the record Timeless. Then The Weeknd gifted Carti a bunch of XO chains, which is something Drake accused The Weeknd of doing, saying that The Weeknd gifts guys chains and cars the same way a guy would normally gift a girl chains and cars. But the same way a girl would normally block a guy off Instagram when she's done with them, Drake has now blocked both Playboi Carti and The Weeknd off Instagram. And that's as far as my patience allowed me to go in digging through Drake's Instagram to see who he still follows and who he unfollowed. I noticed he also still follows Lil Yachty, and there were rumors that they were beefing as well, because back in July, Lil Yachty previewed a record with Drake titled SOD on Kaisa Not Stream, and then a couple weeks later, Drake officially released the record onto his Instagram. But the Lil Yachty feature was removed, and Lil Yachty for a short period of time did unfollow Drake off Instagram. He also made some comments in interviews saying that the Not Like Us record by Kendrick Lamar was the highlight of the entire beef, fueling people to believe that maybe they had beef, but maybe they don't. At the end of the day, who doesn't Drake have beef with that's good enough of a rapper to carry Drake as a feature on his next album? I mean, he can't rap with Rick Ross or Future anymore. He can't get hooks from The Weeknd. He's making it seem like him and J. Cole no longer get along. Who does that leave us with? Sexy Red? Or Yeet? He can't get the stimulus from Makona either because he just retired from rap. So it's looking pretty scary out here for Drake. And it'll also be looking a little scary for you if you made it this far in the video and you haven't dropped a like or a comment. So make sure to do that, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.